All right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Coffee Q&A. I'm your host, Jay, here on the OnoCoffee channel. We do the Coffee Q&A most Monday through Fridays, 10 a.m. Eastern, where we talk about coffee, answer questions, and all that kind of thing. So what's going on? How you doing? Hope your weekend was good. Mine was pretty good. I ended up doing a lot of driving. On Saturday, I had to go down to Fairfax, Virginia, and then out to Front Royal in Winchester, and come back. And then yesterday we went up to Lititz, Pennsylvania. So it's been a bit of driving. Mom, good morning to you. How are you doing? Maku, Kent, good to see all of you. So yesterday, as we were driving around, I thought today we would do this about pretzels, right? And pretzels to you may seem very mundane. And I don't recall I think we did something about pretzels last year, but I don't remember. But I'm really enthusiastic about these pretzels. This is a company called Rocky Road Bakery. And the crazy thing is that these guys are pretty much impossible to find. Like if you put in Rocky Road Bakery into Google, you're going to find some listings about the product. You'll find a Facebook entry that says Rocky Road Bakery, but that's in the United Kingdom, which is totally a different place. So here in the United States, we have this group of people called the Amish. And the Amish are these, I think, like Dutch-German immigrants from many, many years ago who maintained this very rustic way of living. It's part of their religion. They only have handmade clothes. They only do handmade everything. And they ride around in horse-drawn buggies in 2025. But they make great products, right? If you want to have them build a barn, they'll build it for you like in a day. So it's pretty amazing. And they make really interesting food. The Pennsylvania Dutch cuisine is actually very hearty, very tasty, very fulfilling. And they make these pretzels. And this pretzel, I've discovered these pretzels last year just by chance. And every time I go to this area of Pennsylvania, I'm always trying to get more. So I usually find them at this hardware store that we go to up in Lititz, Pennsylvania. And we're going to Lititz yesterday for some other reason. And I was like, man, we need to go and get some of these pretzels. So I said, I looked up the hardware store that sells it, and they were closed. They're closed on Sunday. I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So I kind of did a search, and I found a place called Stouffer's, which is a kind of like a nice home garden grocery store in Lititz, and they had them. And I was like, okay, we're going to go buy. So we went by there. I picked up a few bags because, it's actually about an hour and a half from where I live, so it's pretty far. So every time that I get them now, it's like I got to buy at least 4 bags so that I can. They're $7 a bag, so it's definitely not the cheapest pretzel, but it's a great pretzel. We're going to get more into that. But I thought that let's have pretzels and coffee. And I thought, well, what kind of coffee would I like to have? Let's do Americanos. So we're going to do Americanos today. And if you're not familiar with Americanos are the type of espresso drink that the story is that back in the World War II, right, American soldiers were in Europe conquering the continent. All the Nazis they're pushing out the Nazis, they're pushing out the Mussolinis, and, doing all of that. And so they took over Italy, or they got to Italy, and they wanted to have coffee. And, as you guys who are from the United States know, we're really a big brewed coffee country, right? Where Italy's mostly an espresso drinking country. So American soldiers they want coffee, but all they have is this nasty, bitter espresso. Well, how do we make that? So they ended up watering it down to make the Americano, which is basically double shot espresso with an amount of water to mellow it out and give it a nice character. And there's a whole way to approach it that I think is very compelling. So I thought I'd share that with you today, and we'd have a little bit of pretzels. So basically the idea is that you want to take your Americano, and you can make Americano any size you want. Even though at Sproul we always sold Americanos as 12 ounces, you could come, and here's the thing, at Sproul we were very much like, we are a one-size-fits-all house. Like if you want a latte, there is 12-ounce latte. You want a mocha, there's a 12-ounce mocha. If you want a grande venti mocha, we will not have that for you, right? We just don't have it. We don't have the cups, so we can't give it to you. So we have these cups. cappuccino, this is cappuccino, this is never cappuccino, right? This is just our paradigm. Not that it has to be shared by anyone else, but this is the paradigm that you came into at Spurs, that this is how our world is. And therefore, like if you go to Starbucks World and you're like, can I get a medium? You mean a grande? Sure. You come to Spurs World, can I get a cappuccino? You'll have this, right? Okay, so pretty much every drink that we would serve would have their own particular size, with the exception of the Americano. If you walked into the shop and you're like, hey, can I get an Americano? This is what you'd get. But if you were like, if you were in the know, you could get Americano this size. And why this size is because when I started out in coffee and I was hanging out at my mentor's shop, I get there early, like 6 o'clock in the morning. And the way their shop was oriented, the big bay window in the shop was a east-facing window. So you could sit in the bay window and the sun would start streaming through. And I would sit there before things would get kicked off, and I would make an Americano, and just like this, 6-ounce Americano, maybe just a touch of cream. And I'd float that cream. I'd mix the cream first and then pull the espresso on top. I'd just sit there, contemplative moments before the rush began of sipping this Americano. And I loved it. That's one of my favorite drinks, is the 6-ounce Americano. So you could get Americano in 2 sizes. Anton, how are you doing, man? Good to see you. Peter, how's it going? Obi-Wan Kenobi, how are you, man? Good to see you. Good to see you, Master Kenobi. Maku says Americano macchiato should be on the menu. Americano macchiato. What is Americano macchiato? Let me know what you're thinking there, Maku. Let me know. So, but it's a very simple drink, right? You have hot water, or you have water, or you could make iced Americano, and which we would make. If you want iced Americano, we'd make that too. Water and espresso. It's super, super easy, or super, super simple. But as simple things are, it's never that easy, right? Because here's the thing, for me personally, if I want Americano, like I want it to be like, and I want the Americano to be a reflection of the espresso, meaning that when you make like you get a lot of people, they make Americanos, right? And you go to the shop and they'll get their stainless steel, whatever cup, right? And they'll pull the espresso into it, and then they'll get they'll dump it into the cup and pour the hot water, or go and it's all just like, what are you doing, man? It's all this like black liquid. What is that? There's just no thought. There's no love. There's no consideration for the coffee. You're like, what is this place? Why am I? And I go to a place, I'm just like thinking to myself, why am I here? What am I doing? This is not worth my time. Cappy, what's going on, Cappy? I think Starbucks perverts the sizes and recipes of coffee drink. Well, they certainly have changed the size, but we're in America, man. America loves big drinks. We want bigger. Bigger is better in America. So I get it, but we work with our own paradigm, right? We create our own world. Anton says Americano is going to be real easy with the Morrow, since its water dispensation, with its water dispensation, has volumetrics. Oh, nice. Marcus, you made yourself what sounds like Americano macchiato. Oh, 6. Well, just as a touch. And I mean, like, just like a hint, like just enough to color it slightly. Not too much, not too much, right? And it says apparently Scott Rao always dilutes his espresso. Oh, well, very nice for him. So we're going to make the big one, even though I love the small one. But here's the thing. So like I said, people just dump this stuff together. They don't think about it. You're just like, what are you doing, man? And I think that part of the excitement of Americano is the presentation, right? So for us, it's always a question of like, whether you're doing it either of the sizes. And this is truly where the challenge of making the Americano comes into play. What we want is for the Americano to be a reflection of the espresso, meaning that You know how when you get a double shot of espresso, you want that nice crema, right? You want that beauty to be there. When it comes to Americano, even in the 12 ounce, we want that beauty to be here as well. And if you have a really good shot of espresso, that crema that's so prolific here will also be very strong across here. So like for me, it's like we would teach our baristas that, hey, this is how we want it. We want the crema to cover the top of the espresso. And we're talking, this is one of our service cups, right? So it's a fairly wide spread, especially compared to here. Like we're talking a good, probably 40% more volume or more surface area to cover with the same crema that you'd have in either. And we want that to remain intact. Ideally, it would remain intact until we served it, right? So that when you came in and you were the guest, we would serve you your cup and you'd be like, oh, that's pretty dope, right? Of course, a lot of people would come in, they didn't really know. They're probably wondering why it's kind of foamy on top. But really, for those who are in the know, it really makes a difference. I think it really communicates that we're taking the time, that this is important, right? And it is important, right? Even though it's just a coffee, it's super important because we want to give that attention and detail to your drink. Have I ever met Raul? It seems like you always got these people on the. I have met him a couple times. He's definitely in the same circles that we run in. Yeah, for sure. If it seems to you like I'm a little bit tepid, it's because I don't quite agree with a lot of what he said about coffee. So, and if you ask me for specifics, I have no idea because I don't really pay attention. He may say something, I'm like, oh, that's ridiculous. I'm going to move on. So if I come across as a bit tepid, that's probably why. But, he does a great job. A lot of people love him. A lot of great information out there. So, but back to this, we have, we're just going to make it. We're going to make it, and we're going to try it. And we're going to have it with the pretzels. And tell one of those is pretzels. All right, let's go to the machine. But first of all, that's right. We need to boil some water. So I want to boil some water because unlike tomorrow, I don't usually pull the hot water from the machine, mainly because this is something that you might want to consider for your home use, and it all depends on your situation, what you have. It's definitely not a blanket statement, but definitely within commercial professional coffee, we tend not to use the water from the machine itself, mainly because the water in a coffee machine has been sitting there. Well, the water itself hasn't been sitting there for a long time, but the water in the boiler, so the steam boilers are always heated, right? So they're boiling, they're heating, they're creating steam. But as we know, water is not just I want to say CO2, but that's not right. Water is just not hydrogen, oxygen, right? It is also mineral particulates that make up the composition of the water. Now, they're super small particulates compared to the water and compared to the oxygen, hydrogen, but they're still in there. And as we heat the water and expend the steam, right, we're pushing the steam out, the water out, which is essentially distilled, right? Because the particulates are not going with it. So the particulates remain in the boiler. And those can make it a little bit heavier. They could lead to all kinds of other issues. But the basic idea is that it becomes a little more heavier, the water. So the water doesn't taste as nice from the steam boiler. So since most machines are designed to pull their hot water from the steam boiler, because especially if they're two-group machines, because they're larger, they're larger of the boilers, and they can take that kind of drop better than a separate brew boiler. it's going to be just not taste as good. So we don't tend to use that. So we'll tend to boil it. And at Spro, we actually had a separate water tower that heated all of our brew water and kept it at like 96 Celsius. So it's a little bit of a different approach. Anton says tomorrow is boilerless, so that won't be a concern. Well, then perfect. That's perfect. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it's you kind of don't take these as blanket statements as far as like what not to use the water from your machine. It's going to depend on your particular situation. So what we're going to do for the water. So the idea is that we want to have the water in the vessel before we pull the shot. So we're pulling the shot of espresso on top of it and having it float. And the idea is that we want it to float and coat the entire surface of the cup, right? Of the water here. And here's the trick. So it's like you have to figure out like, okay, I need to put how much water in here and the espresso so that it can, and then we want to have a good amount. Like if you're at home, it may not matter so much, but definitely professionally, this is what I worry about. It's like we want to have it enough so that it fills the cup enough so that the guest is like, okay, good, I got enough. Instead, you know, the times you go to like the fast food joint and they give you your soda and the soda's like it's like that far below the rib. You're like, well, good. I need my Coke. What's going on here, right? I need my Dr. Pepper. So we want to make it so that it's nice and full, so that it looks visually appealing here, but also visually appealing with volume. But we also have to be cognizant of the fact that, like, okay, this person now is going to hold this cup, and especially when you're talking about a cup for in-house service, right? We're going to serve you your cup. Now this guest has to take this cup and take it to the table. Actually, and a lot of times we would actually bring the coffee to them if they were in-house, but just as the exercise, because either way, it's the same thing. How do we, and especially if we were delivering it to them, right? It's even probably more important because here we want to have the crema maintained at least to this point, right? Because this is the point of delivery. And we want you to see that. We want you to be excited about it. But if you're sitting at the table, bring it to, now that crema has to last until we bring it to you and it sits down in front of you and you're like, oh, this is amazing. Whereas if it's broken, oh, it's a coffee. It's cool. They're at least as good as Starbucks. Good Lord. So, but it's that travel time that's also important because, like, you know, it's always like those things. Like now you've got to hold all this stuff and balance it. And if it's too full, you're going to shake it. It's going to fall. It's going to spill on the side of your cup. It's going to, for the guest, it's going to spill on the side of the cup. And you're going to be like, that's not so pretty. I got to wipe it. For us, it's going to spill on the floor. And now we got to clean that. So it's like, So it's finding a balance between those things. And even at home, you know, especially if you're drinking for yourself or making for your friends guests who may be over, if you fill up too much and it spills on your floor, like your nice hardwood floor, you're like, oh man, I got to clean my floor, right? So we're just waiting. Okay, so now the water's boiling. I'm just going to turn that down and let's go prepare our espresso because what we want to do is we want to prepare everything and then roll forward. But first we're going to pull a shot just to see how we're doing and see if we like it. So let's go over here to the espresso machine. And as you can see, those who may be joining us for the very first time, this is the La Valentina E61. So this is actually a machine I've been using for 20 years now. So it's very, and oh, see, I keep forgetting to take those out before I wrap up from the last session. So as you can see, I have not cleaned, I cleaned everything else. I just didn't knock this out, but this has been sitting there for the last, when did we do the last episode? Thursday? So just make sure that it runs all clean, and then we're gonna put, you know, I like to rinse the portafilter and then put it back in the group head to allow all the water to drain out, right? That way it doesn't, it reduces the amount of spillage that happens on the counter and how much I need to clean myself, right? So let's put that there, and now we're gonna get our, grind out our test shot here. A little bit more. Let's see, a little bit more. Yeah, that's good. So we've got. So remember, we had we're not having the static cling that we saw last week. So the last week, the couple times we saw some static being generated by the grinder. So we would see the espresso would kind of spread out over the basket. But here now we're back to our normal falling and clumping. So it doesn't spread out as evenly, or as it looks strange when you see it. But like now we can see that there is some bouldering here. There is a little bit of like, small. It's higher mounted here than over here. So again, it's just about like distribution is really just about looking at where. And this is something I think that those of you who are enthusiasts might want to consider more. It's like I know a lot of people like to grab their WDTs, those spinners, right? And you just kind of like dose, whatever you have in there, 18 grams or whatever. And then you just put that down and do or maybe you rake first and then you spin. But when it comes to distribution, I think it's important to think about, how do you really want to approach it? Like, I don't really use the WDT or the spinners, the spinners. I'm going to say spinners. I don't know what they're really called, but because I want to think about how to get around it and how we're doing. So here we're higher in here. So I want to come around. And now instead of just coming straight over, right, to fall in these lower parts here, I want to come around to sweep into it, because by going this way, then I'm going to probably lose a lot of the coffee. And I want to maintain about, this is probably close to 22, 23 grams, right? So I just want to maintain as much as I can. So I'm coming around. And what I'm doing is I'm not flat with my finger. I'm actually very curved like this. That way it's not, I don't want to compress the coffee. I just want to sweep the coffee. So I swept around this way and filled that in. Then I'll come back around this way, come forward with it. And then there was a little bit that fell here. So I'm just going to come around just to contain it. And now I'm just kind of keeping to the center, because the idea is that when I come in for the tamp, and this is the C+ tamper from Reg Barber, which has a slight chamfer right here. And the idea behind this chamfer is that it's going to push slightly the coffee to the edges. And the idea with having the mount here is it's going to flatten and push out. That's the theory. And then the ultimate way to test this, right? And what we're really trying to do is get even distribution of the coffee over the coffee bed or in the basket, because we want to prevent channeling, which will lead to uneven extraction. Now, the easiest way to see whether or not you're successful in combating the channeling is to use a naked portafilter. This is not a naked portafilter. This is a La Marzocco stainless steel, more modern version of the portafilter. More modern meaning that probably 2018. But what you want to, so when you see it right in the naked, you'll see it shooting out. If you've done a poor job on distribution. The nice thing about these is that it contains everything. So you never really know, and you feel like, you're a champion. And you never have to check. You never have to worry about that. So now we got that there. I'm going to put this down on top. I just set it on top, right? Just to let it sit, to settle. And then I'm going to use 2 fingers on opposing sides. And I'm really feeling on the top rim, at the top edge of the tamper piston and the top rim of the basket. And I'm using both fingers, and I'm feeling both edges with each individual finger, and then using them in opposition to see what kind of level we have. So if it's like, say, a little bit higher, like this thumb is a little bit higher, that's like, I may push down the thumb to level it out, right? And I'm going to work my way around and see how level we are. And then as it's unlevel, I'll make any kind of adjustments. This one is relatively level. So we don't have to worry about that. Take that off. And then now we're going to come in with the tamp and a light twist to polish. And then I toss out any of the excess that may be sitting on top, flick that out, wipe off the wings, and then we're pretty much ready to go. So we're going to flush the group head and come in just to make sure that the water runs clean, as well as in the heat exchange machine's case, like this is, we want to make sure that the water line is not overtly heated, right? Let me lock and load. Oops, lock and load. Brew right away. And then come in with our shot. Nice, thick-looking crema. That looks pretty good. Very brown, very brown. All right, so a little bit of flicker right there. That little flicker you might have seen tells us that the shot is done. So we're gonna come out here, have a look at it, and we can even confirm that there's a little bit of this blonding here, so that also kind of tells us that it is time to stop. So let's bring it back over. Can we come in a little more? Anton says, yes, I spilled a cap on my shirt. Oh no, that's terrible. Drying coffee with milk on cloth really, yeah, it really, yeah, that's never a fun way to go about it. Anton says, I just shake for 2 seconds with a dosing ring on to distribute. Super fast workflow, nice. Peter says, I call them kitchen clutter, those spinner things. Yeah, I haven't really found a way to, like, I don't come from a background in coffee where I've utilized those. So it's, for me to work it into the workflow is a little bit clunky. I brought them to the shop many years ago to let the baristas decide if they want to use it. Like, we would train them the way that we train them normally, and then these would be some of the accessories they could have to try and to use if they wanted to, but nobody ever. None of them ever took it on. Like, they played with it, they're like, oh, we don't like that. Anton says, distributors don't look good on statistics. Neither does Autocomb. What WDT is okay. Shaker rules supreme. Oh, nice. Autocomb, I don't know. Is that the one where you like, and it kind of flicks around like that? Is that right? Anton says, I only just used distributor when I was on my Flare Neo Flex, and every time I used it, I got crazy channeling. Oh, well, yeah, then it's definitely not working. All right, let's have a look here. We're going to look here. Crema, nice and brown. Look at that. That's probably some of the most darker brown we've seen ever, I would say. I don't know what's going on there. Let's have a taste. Oh, you know, for a coffee that's for some of this coffee that's been sitting inside the burrs for the last 5 days, it's not bad. A little bit astringent, but good body, good flavor overall, but still a bit more stringent than we're used to. Peter says, I've seen a shaker cup that fits over the basket. The shaker cup is the one where you put the cup and is that the one you put the spritz and then you shake, shake, shake? Is that correct? Anton says, normal shaker like from WW, Weber, is that right? WW is Weber. Fits over the basket, but apparently there's advantage to dropping the coffee in from a slight height. Oh, maybe get that like oxygenation. Anton says, yes, Barista Hustle Autocomb actually causes channeling, even though it's so expensive. I'm not surprised. Obi-Wan Kenobi, I've been a home coffee roaster for about 20 years. Awesome, awesome. Recently bought I'm very hard to read, that's terrible. So, recently bought my first espresso machine, a Gaggia Classic. What's your opinion of how long you would consider coffee fresh? You know, a lot of gurus are going to tell you absolutes. Coffee is good for 2 weeks. Coffee is good for 1 month. Coffee is good. Coffee's only good for 3 days after, whatever they're telling you. I tend to I'll keep that in mind, right? I'll use that maybe as guidelines, right? But if I look at a bag of coffee, like if I look at this bag of coffee, this lovely Paul Michel Colombia from a famous roaster, George Howell, right? If I look at this, and I look at this bag, and what does it say here? It says roast date April 1st. Now, For the most part, April 1st is enough because April 1st, most people will consume their coffee within a reasonable amount of time. However, I'm not one of those reasonable people. When this says April 1st, this actually is April 1st, 2023. Not 2024, but 2023, if I remember correctly. The question is it still good? I think so. The only way to know is to taste it, to try it. So the thing is that the way that I look at it is that if you can have an older coffee, not necessarily this old. This is an extreme. Like this is ridiculousness, right? At this point, but if you have an older coffee or one that a coffee that is of a certain age that the gurus are like, oh yeah, that we would never put that to our lips. Put it to your lips. Say it to yourself. Does the coffee still taste good to you? Does it still perform how you'd like it to perform? If so, it's still good. It's still fine. To me, in my thinking of coffee, right? There's a lot in my world of coffee. There's a lot of discussion about techniques, standards, blah 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 blah, all kinds of like. I have spent my entire career amongst coffee professionals or people that were becoming coffee professionals, pontificating about the scientific aspects, trying to make themselves look like scientists and doing experiments and all this stuff. Because, we're, especially early on, we're all like young in the business, less knowledgeable in the business. So everyone's trying to make themselves like, seem like they know what they're talking about when we really don't. We really don't. So, but my whole thing is that while there is all of this technical side of it, the ultimate thing for me is that the whole purpose of coffee is this. If for me to make a cup and give it to you, our guest, I give F all about everything that came before it based on how you react to it. Right? Like if you're the guest and you come into Spro and you drink the coffee and you're like, this is effing awesome. What do I care what the TDS is? What do I care how old the damn coffee is? I don't care about those things. All I care about is the taste. Honestly, all I care about is the taste experience that you have. And if we can find, now, that doesn't mean that we disregard all of the technical stuff. We very much take that into account, but the whole thing is how you taste it, right? How does it taste to you? Like, we'll do all the testing, we'll do like scaling and all that and TDS measurements because we want to understand our process. But when it comes down to it, it's like this is why you don't really see me like I know a lot of you guys are home enthusiasts who are very much been taught that it must be 18 grams every moment, 18.1, and you're going to get your spoon and you're going to scoop that out. I don't really care about that 0.1 gram. Like, I don't care if it's 18.1, 18.2, that, well, let's go. Let's go with it. Let's see what happens. Like this for sure. Like, we didn't scale this shot. This shot looks very nice. Like, I think the shot quality looks very nice. Well, not so much now, but when we first pulled it. But, I didn't scale anything. The coffee has been sitting in the grinder since last Thursday. Especially the ones in this shot, there's the coffee that's inside the burrs. That's half ground. They're still there. So I think when it comes to that question, just let your taste be your guide, right? If you take, and no matter what people tell you, like they're going to tell you like all this stuff, like, oh, this coffee is amazing. But if you get the coffee and you're like, this is not good, I don't like it. Well, if you don't like it, then it's not good. Like, I remember one of my good friends, one of my really close friends, he lives in Bangkok, Thailand now. And like Keone, he's also from Hawaii, right? And so I remember years ago when geisha was new to the industry, he was like, man, I finally got to try that geisha. And I was like, so what'd you think? Because we're talking. He's like, oh, I hated it. I was like, really? Oh, how could you hate it? Like, it's like the greatest thing since sliced bread. He's like, dude, if I want a coffee that tastes like tea, I will buy tea. And I was like, you know what, man? Good point. Fair point. So, not to say that, it's not important to worry about dates and all that, but the question of freshness is really, does it taste good to you? Let that be your guide. That's all that matters. Because really, coffee is personal. It's basically it's pleasurable hedonism, right? And it's for yourself, for you to enjoy. So if you have the coffee, this is why I don't get up. I don't let people that tell me that, oh, I love Maxwell House or I love Starbucks. That doesn't because people are always like, oh, you must hate that. It's like, I don't care. Do they enjoy it? Are they in euphoria over drinking it? If they are, then great. If they're not, then what are you wasting your time for? So don't worry about so much what the parameters are. Just how it does taste for you. If the coffee still is good for you, then it's perfect. It's perfect. Peter says, I might get a rock. Takes up less bench space, but it's more kitchen clutter. Oh yeah, the kitchen clutter is always a problem, isn't it? Like even in my kitchen, I've got it all pared down to just like this one old like Bodum boiler and the grinder we used to use here on the show, the Barazza Virtuoso. I've just got that, and then maybe a French press, and even then I'm still like, it's too much. It's too much. I want to get rid of it. It's like but I won't get rid of my little teapot, because really I drink tea mostly. Like I've got this little glass teapot that's about this big, and I've got this super like cheap tea, red label, like the one for the Assam from like India, the little bees. Like it's like why would you bring that into this palace? But it's just a fun like red tea that, if I just want to have something to like drink during the day, it's fine. I don't need to get the super nice high grown or like, nice garden petals. I don't care about all that. Just give me some tea, some red tea, like old style Lipton, like I grew up with, right? Anton says, rock, you mean that thing that looks like the Café Latte Roba? So the rock that's the one that's like this? Is that right? Anton says, I have a friend who buys a lot of coffee and takes forever to drink it. So from trying his coffees, I can definitely say that I don't like coffee that's past roast over like half a year. Well, then there it is. Oh, but that's right there. Let me go back to that. So, Obi-Wan, what's one thing that you might want to consider? And this is something that I do advocate quite vigorously. And especially early on in my career, like people really hated on me for advocating this. Freeze your coffee. Like if you want to, this is what I recommend, right? You buy a coffee, right? And you taste it, you drink it. I don't mean cup it, but I mean just brew it like how you normally do. You drink your coffee, you taste it, and let's say if you want to go through this kind of pain and ridiculousness, I certainly will encourage it. Whereas I don't encourage other ridiculousness. But buy your coffee, and pay attention to the date that it was roasted. Consider that in your calculations. Every day that you make it, you brew the coffee. And you can try to be consistent as you want. That's fine, whatever. But think critically about the way that it tastes. Do you like it? Is there a point that you taste it and you're like, oh, this is awesome? At that moment, take that coffee, put it in the freezer, right? And you don't have to do anything special. If it's in its bag, just roll it up nice and tight and put it in the freezer. Not the refrigerator, but the freezer. Like you want it to be below freezing. And freezing will hold the coffee at that flavor position indefinitely. Like I've done tests over like years now, and it holds it indefinitely. Now, if we think about the world of coffee flavor in regards to in terms of its life cycle, right? You've got the roast. Is this how it should go? Yeah. For you guys, it should go like this. You've got the roast time, the day of roast. So let's say the day of roast, let's say we start here. The day of roast starts here in flavor quality. And then for the first like week, it just plummets. Or like first day plummets. And then like it's down here. And then finally it starts to rise about a week later. And then let's say, you're tasting it, you're like, okay, it's good. And then this is the peak. and then it maybe start to precipitate. Now, the precipitation from its peak is not like this dramatic thing. It's actually a very long decline. So pretty much after two months, the general rule of thumb now is that I've come up with is that after about 2 months of post-roast time, the coffee has degraded as much as it's going to degrade for the next like 2 years. And the next 2 years, the degradation is very like shallow. The slope is very shallow. But forget all that. The thing is that let's say you're tasting your coffee and you find the peak that you like. And it may not be the ultimate peak. I mean, if you want to do this, if you want to try this and you get a good roaster that's very consistent in the way they roast, and they have enough coffee to last maybe some months for you to experiment with this. You can do batch to batch and pay attention to the days past roast and compare flavor notes between them and how the performance is. And you can find, so like basically you find the peak and then it starts to come down. You're like, oh, I missed the peak, right? So then you can get later batches and you're like, okay, this is the peak. This is the peak. And then you freeze it. Right? Just put it in the freezer. Don't vacuum seal it. Don't do all the crazy stuff. Just put it in the freezer. Perfectly fine. You only need to worry about vacuum bagging if it's like moisture, like freezer burn happens because the product has a lot of moisture, right? Meat is like 40% or plus moisture content. Roasted coffee is 2 to 3%. There's nothing you can do. That's why we can take this product straight from the freezer, go into the grinder, and no issues, because there's barely any moisture in it, right? You can't take meat and cut it right away because it's too frozen, right? So then when you get this frozen coffee, it basically will hold the flavor position indefinitely. So, a month later, if you want to come back to it, just scoop out what you're going to use. Weigh out your 18 grams and then work with it normally. And it will hold the flavor as long as you want, until you consume it all. It's really a great way to buy nice coffee. Like if you buy nice coffee and then you're like, it's like you buy this $50 bag of coffee and you're like, man, I got to use it in my window. Otherwise I'm going to I'm going to waste my money. But then now I got to drink it all and I'm not going to have it for a while. But if you hold it at that point, you can save it for when your friends come over and you want to show off. You're like, hey, or maybe a lady friend comes over. You're like, hey, let me make some nice coffee for you. Right? That's what we want, right? That's what we want. Doesn't have the same effect as wine, but you get it. You get the point. You get the point, right? Anton says, generally, I think it depends a lot on this. Yes, I think storage has a tremendous impact on how the coffee will degrade or hold up. Like if you can keep it cool, like if you're not freezing it, try to keep it cool. Try to keep it out of sunlight. Try to keep it opaque. That's why most bags of coffee are opaque, because it doesn't really, you want to avoid that. And of course, with coffee, especially if you're not freezing it, you want to try to keep oxygenation of the coffee down. So try to get as much air as possible out. If you're not freezing it, then you could go to the extreme of vacuum packing it. I think that's a little bit extreme. Like, you vacuum pack and you got to cut it open and you got to use it and then vacuum pack it again and then cut it open. If that's only, if you're drinking, if you're buying, say, a pound of coffee a week and you're consuming that coffee in a week, then that other stuff is superfluous, right? You're just now you're just wasting your time and money and you're making yourself crazy for no reason. Obi-Wan says, yes, yes, thank you for your opinion. It's just my opinion too. Just remember that. I'm only one person in a sea of many, many blabbermouths on the YouTube telling you how to enjoy your coffee. I like for my brewed coffee, like Chemex, I prefer under 6 weeks. Nice. Yeah, see, there's some people that would be like, 6 weeks? That's disgusting. That's just wrong. You should never use it 6 weeks. You just tell them to shut the hell up. I don't want to talk to you. I'm not talking to you no more. But the espresso, English is so difficult. But I can't speak anything else. But the espresso being brewing is almost 10 weeks old. Well, the espresso I've been brewing is almost 10 weeks old and still tastes, that's the key. It still tastes good to you. It's all that matters. It truly is all that matters. Right? Like, does it taste good? Who cares how old it is? I don't. I mean, if I'm a guy, if I'm a guy that goes into a coffee shop and I want to tut what they're doing, yes, of course, I only want fresh roasted coffee, 10-week coffee. Cappy says, from my local coffee roaster, I lose all the crema on my shots after 3 or 4 weeks, but the coffee tastes basically the same, but just a little. And so, when it comes to espresso brewing, that's not uncommon, right? Because you've got these VOCs, the volatile organic compounds that are in the coffee, that are the oils and stuff are kind of dissipating. So a lot of times you'll find that if you do wait a long time to try to get that crema out of the espresso, it does weaken. So this is where freezing will help you. Like, if you want to keep your coffee longer, do the freezing. If you want to see a little bit of a banter about that with a scientist, I have this series of videos that we shot maybe 3-4 years ago called The Coffee Wonderland here on this channel, and with Greg Skase. So if you're familiar with this thing called the Skase device that people use to measure water and pressure in the espresso machines, well, this is the guy that created it. This is the Skase of Skase device. So Greg and I have been friends for many, many years. And we're hanging out at his house, and he does a lot of testing from machine manufacturers. And of course, he's also a freezing guy. And so we actually come from similar similar influences in coffee. And he's like, and in the video, I said to him, "What do you think about these guys I can't remember exactly what I said, but what do you think about these guys that poo-poo on freezing?" He said, "Well, they just don't know science." It's like, well, exactly. It's like, exactly. So if you want to keep your coffee longer, freeze it. I think you'll find really, really encouraging results by doing that. Hobie1 says, plus I discovered I prefer blends for espresso, but single origin for black. I'm totally with you on that. I mean, I think single origins can be great, but I think when it comes to, and they can be great as espresso. Don't like single origin espressos can be really expressive, but I think that at least for my mindset and the Spro approach of things, that we want an espresso that's going to be generally appealing to a wider range of people. So we want it to have things like good, really strong body, cocoa or chocolate notes. We want it to have a little bit of berry fruit. We want a really long finish, like a lingering kind of aftertaste, maybe just a little bit of nuttiness, right? To get all those components is very difficult in a single origin, right? Single origins are going to express themselves in different ways that could be wonderful. And then the other criteria is that we want it to be the espresso to stand up like this on its own, really be like, oh, this is classic. And actually, now that it's cool, it's really good, delicious. And then also we want it to be really strong enough, or we want it to be assertive enough to stand up in milk drinks, right? So that even though we're maybe making milk drinks that have vanilla syrup or chocolate syrup or things like that, that you will still have that identity of the coffee in the latte, even though there's a preponderance of other ingredients over the espresso. So just different intents for the coffee, where single origins are meant to be single expressions of coffee in whatever form they. And in some ways, I think that there's a lot of beautiful single origin, but I think part of the reason that single origins became really, really popular with a lot of roasters, a lot of coffee shops, is because it's very one note and it's very easy, right? Like, you can find a really wild tasting single origin and roast it just a little bit, and it's going to be great, because if you start with high quality ingredients, it's much easier. But if you have to do blending or something like that to create to create synergy and to create a whole that's greater than its components, that's much more difficult. I mean, it's exponentially more difficult, I think, right? Because if I took a beautiful I don't know, the Pepe Gijon, right? Pepe Gijon's making these beautiful coffees. If I take a coffee from Pepe Gijon and I put it into my roaster and I roast it up to what? I don't know, 385 degrees and drop it, it's nice and golden brown and beautiful. Like just, we hear the first crack, and then we stop, easy. And then we got these beautiful high notes and like brightness and all these other flavors. Super easy, super easy, right? Like this is why we roast coffee for cuppings to those levels, because we want to have those things pop up readily, quickly. Right? Now, if we have to go and develop sweetness, develop complexity, we want to, put together different flavor profiles, and then we have to add coffees to it. And then we have to do that not just once. Like really the one thing about single origins, you have this, like, let's say we've got the 2002 or the 2024, this little micro lot from Pepe Gijon, and then we've got this, super like anaerobic process, and here it is, which is great. 2025, we have this super micro lot process, a little bit different, and here it is, perfect. But if you have a blend that has an identity, and you have to recreate that year in, year out, with the same flavor profile, because that's what people expect, with varying and disparate coffee lots, and sometimes from disparate countries, that's a lot more difficult. Like we like to, I know craft brewers like to poo-poo on like Budweiser, right? But if you think about Budweiser, and whatever you think about Budweiser's flavor, forget that part, but just think that Budweiser, the people at Budweiser are able to create this beer, this, what people think is crappy beer, thin beer. They have a very distinct flavor profile, or they have a very particular flavor profile. They're able to do that. Decades are doing it. Consistently, in and out, with, again, disparate crop harvests every year. That, to me, is like, amazing. Or like, if we talk about wine houses, right? Let's say champagne houses, let's say Dom Perignon, or like any of those champagne houses, they have a distinct flavor profile, right? They have a house style. These guys now, and these guys are to me, are like even more amazing, because like the Budweiser guys, they're tasting the grains and all that, figuring out kind of in the moment. But the wine people, right? They're tasting basically green wines that are freshly out of the fermentation vats. And they're tasting these wines and they're extrapolating the finished product maybe 2 years ahead to get the house flavor profile so that it's always consistent. I'm like, wow, man, I don't know how to do. I don't know if I could do that. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. That's just like super impressive. So just some tangential. Again, English is terrible today. Tangential thoughts for a Monday morning. Peter says, I roast my own beans, and there's a noticeable difference to me in 3 days. I mean, hey, here's a question for you, Peter. What my experience with roasting is that I can, I know you said in the past that you roast your coffee, and you're pretty much roasting just enough for you to drink for that day. So you roast the coffee, and then you drink it. And when we were doing our testing last year on this live stream, where we were taking the coffee, roasting it, and then tasting it daily to see the drop-off from flavor because of the CO2. For those who may not have seen that, basically when you roast coffee, the byproduct of the roasting process is CO2 emanation. The coffee gives off CO2 gas. This is why people say to wait a week before you drink the coffee from the date of roast, because that CO2 degassing is kind of like, it's obscuring the flavor of the coffee, right? So to get the really good flavor, you have to wait a week. So you wait a week and then you drink. But I found that on this live stream, we found that we roast the coffee, we drink it, pretty damn good. 24 hours later. And so the way that the professional coffee world works is that we roast the coffee. So let's say we're roasting right now, 10 a.m. We're roasting the coffee. We roast it. Tomorrow morning, 24 hours later, we're going to cup that and taste it. When we were doing our live stream test on this, we roasted it the first day and then cupped it. I think we cupped or drank it. We tasted it immediately out of the roaster. And then we tasted it for the next 7 days successively. And it was fine. It was good post-roast, immediately post-roast. 24 hours later, terrible. Like it has really made me question, like, our SOPs, standard operating practices within coffee of cupping the next day, I think is a fallacy. Like we're not getting proper valuation. Like everybody, it's accepted standard in the industry. Like everybody does it that way. And my friends who have asked to recreate that, I know they haven't because they're no one's going to believe it. No, everyone wants to know. And plus, it makes it like, what, I got to roast and then cup? That's just too much work, right? Or I got to roast and then wait a week. That's ridiculous, right? So, but the point is that I'm curious, Peter, that when are you finding the degradation to be that bad as well? Cappy says, but I love my coffee at home for the taste, not the Instagram look. Oh, perfect. In-state, I don't know what that means, Anton, but Peter says that, but I've kept coffee in my freezer for years, still drinkable, not saying it's good. Okay, that's fair. I mean, I think there is a point where it may degrade, and I think also it's going to depend on the coffee. Like it's one of those things where, like, if you got, even within specialty, there's good coffees and there's great coffees. If you have the good coffees, do you really want to hold them that long? Will they really hold up that well? Maybe even the great coffees you're trying to keep longer, they may not last as well. Again, I think it goes back to tasting and relying upon your taste to decide, because your taste truly is the only real arbiter for yourself, for what we're doing, right? Because myself or anyone on the internet can tell you all kinds of stuff, or any coffee professional can do all kinds of stuff, but you know what? If you don't like it, you don't like it. I can have everyone on the planet tell me that bitter melon is the greatest vegetable on the planet, and I still don't like it. I still don't want to eat it. Like, well, put that aside, please. Anton says, freezing coffee is really good, but it's important to not unfreeze all at once. Oh, yes, absolutely. Only take out what you need. So single dose unfreezing, basically. Yeah, you just scoop out what you need, leave the rest in. Yeah, what you don't want is the temperature swings, right? Anton says, I've seen many people do it wrong and then complain on Reddit because their coffee tasted bad after. Tell them to watch this channel. We'll tell them. The Asian dev is with us finally. I actually have Hacienda Esmeralda in the freezer, 2021 vintage. Ooh. And, next time you break that out and you drink it, let us know how it tastes. I'd be interested to know. We're talking 4-year-old coffee. I'd be very interested to hear what you think. Anton says, I have no freezer, only an icy tube in the fridge. At least this time of year is easier, right? Peter says, me too. I pre-weigh individual single doses in miniature capsules for freezer storage. Ooh, that's a good idea. It doesn't take up too much space in your freezer? I mean, I guess I'm only saying it because I might put like a 5-pound bag in and be like, okay, well, now I got all this. Now I don't have any space for my meats. Anton says, apparently grinding frozen coffee improves particle distribution as well. Oh, I didn't know that. I just figured the friction, the heat would just help to like thaw it out a little bit more. Peter says, I have 6 in the freezer at home. Excellent. And Saw Coffee is with us. What's going on? Morning. I stored a blend of beans in the freezer for 6 months until the light roasted watermelon no longer tasted like medicine. Oh, there's always tasting after. So you held it. So you had a watermelon coffee that you didn't like the flavor. It had this medicinal character to it. And then you put it, I'm not frustrated. I'm just kind of itchy. So Don't take that as the wrong way. So you put it in the freezer because you didn't like the medicinal taste, and the freezing reduced that medicinality in the coffee. That's fascinating. The result was tasty enough to drink. But I'm curious to know, like, if you had this coffee and you didn't enjoy it, why did you keep it? Was it just because it was pricey? Which I totally would understand. Like, I've got this expensive coffee that everybody loves, and I kind of don't like it. I hate to throw it away. The Asian dev says, I still remember the video when you visited Greg's case, was it? Yes, exactly. Where you deep dived about frozen beans. He also had Leva X. That's actually, oh, okay, that's how you found it. So yeah, Greg has the great, like, Kent Baki, who's the owner of La Marzocco, gave that to him. I was like, oh gosh, dude. Like, I've known Kent for like 20 years. He hasn't given me any machines. But yeah, that lever, ooh, man, especially at that moment that we did that video, that time frame, like it had just come out. So he posted about it on his Facebook. I called him and said, dude, can I come down and make a video about that? He's like, yeah, come on. He's like, come on down. We're like in the middle of COVID, right? I'm coming down. I think his wife was a little bit upset with us doing that, but whatever. But if you go to his house, man, it really is coffee wonderland, because like he has got so many machines, and there were some machines I didn't show in the video because like they were like in development with the manufacturers at the time. So it's like they're like not even released. They're not even close to being released. So they were like way pre-production. And so I was like, oh, this is awesome. Good morning to you, Craig. Same taste blending happens in cigars. Oh yeah. Oh, that's true. That's very true. And Peter says carbonic CO2. I don't know what about a Monday. CO2 carbonic taste is what I'm used to. Okay. Peter also says same with the honey taste. Same with the honey. Reading is so difficult this morning. Same with honey. The taste do lose over the years. Not everything not everything ages like fine. And so one of the other things, speaking of the aging like fine wine, like one of the other things I do is not just freezing coffees, but I'm also having been experimenting with aging coffees. So when this kind of stemmed from my first trip to Café del Hombre in Tokyo in 2007. I'm there, and I was really, when it comes to Café del Hombre, I'm so floored by what they do and how they do it. I don't know why, but I'm just totally floored. I'm totally a fanboy of what they do. And of Master Sekiguchi, right? And I remember they had like these aged coffees on their menu, and they don't really do anything special for it. They just kind of keep them. 1968 was one of the ones. When I first started going there, it was like 1968. I was like, 1968. We even try, actually, in the video that I finally released, that I shot in 2007 about Café del Hombre, maybe 2 years ago we released it. We're tasting coffees from that era. Now, James Hoffman, Daddy Hoff, as you might know him, I think he's quoted somewhere, because he also visited Lombre that same week that we were all there, right? And he was like, I think he said somewhere on the internet, or maybe on his blog, that it was like the greatest worst experience of his coffee. Like he didn't like the coffee, but he loved the experience, something like that. I think the coffee is really wonderful, but for me, it's like I think you have to set your expectations, right? Like I'm not going to a Kisaten, especially these old school Kisatens, how about that? That will probably not be as good. Let's see. It's probably thinner sounding. How about if I add that? Does that improve? Batteries are dead. So, all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm using instead of using these external like lavalier mics, I've switched to the onboard camera mics of this camera and then this one here above my head. And then maybe I'll turn this one here on this other camera on so that as I move around, it should be a little bit better than me sounding farther and farther away from something. Okay, good. So like I said, we did this aging process with these coffees from Abdullah Bergesh and went from like hardcore, like forward blueberry to refined Cabernet. But not all coffees survive that, right? Some coffees just fell off and we had to like consume them right away rather than doing anything else. All right, let me catch up here. Peter says, same with the honey. With honey, the taste do lose over the years. Not everything ages. Oh, wait, that's fine, I guess. And Sauce says, it was a Colombian and Guatemalan blend. We've been brewing for 3 years. We had 10. Oh, yeah, 10 pounds. 10 pounds a lot. You're like, I got 10 pounds of freezer and it doesn't taste good. What am I going to do with it? Yeah, I get it. Asian says, I couldn't further hand the storyline. Nice. Anton says, I've had the impression that the Japanese, especially elders, have some weird proclaimed practices like super old coffee that look good but are not annoying. No, I think it's one of those things where, like, here's the thing. It's like, I think you have to take a lot of it within context. And like, if I go to, like, for example, if I go to a place in Tokyo, there's a little shop. So if you know of a company, there's a specialty coffee shop called Passenger. And Passenger is kind of close to Tokyo Tower. Down the street from Passenger is a little, or maybe really close to Passenger, because the one time that I went by there, they were just about to open, so they were still building it. So I didn't go to Passenger, but I know that they've opened, and I know people know about them, and they're part of this whole like new school, not third wave, but specialty coffee movement, right? I think third wave is my generation. These are like specialty coffee generation, whatever this fourth wave craziness might be. But there's a little place called Daphne, Daphne, run by this older woman. I wouldn't say she was elderly at the time. Well, but she was an older woman. And you go there, and it's Kisaten style, dark. Like you go there, dark roasted coffees, classic coffees. Right? I think you go to Kisatens, and some of them have changed. Lambre has changed significantly in the way maybe the way they select, but definitely the way they presented coffees, roasted the coffees over the years. Definitely influenced by, our section of the business, right? The specialty coffee end. But a lot of these Kisatens prefer like the old school, darker roasts, more chocolatey notes in their blends. And I think you want to go, and I think that if we go to a place with the expectation that they should conform to what we want, what we may have in our minds, like if we're of the specialty coffee mindset, then we go to these places and have that specialty coffee, like, okay, it should only be light roasted geisha. That's the only coffee worthwhile. Then you're going to be disappointed, right? Then you're going to find frustration. If that's the case, then you should only go to the glitches of the world, or there's Glitch, there's Onibus, there's Omotesando, still called Omotesando coffee, or Cafe Mameya. Those kind of places are really geared towards this particular kind of specialty coffee mindset. Whereas the other world of Kisatens are really, they're still kind of, some of them are still kind of in the old school. And I think if you go there, and I go there with the intention of experiencing what they have, rather than trying to pull my particular vision of coffee. And I don't really go, in Japan especially, right? I don't really go to the coffee roasters, coffee shop, because, you know what, I'm from the sector. I'm from an older part of the sector, meaning I'm more third wave than specialty, the new specialty. I like these like more blended coffees. I still love the single origin, but I don't necessarily want to have all light and bright. So if I go to these places, then I'm going there, and it's kind of like, for me to go to a lot of these places, I can go to those kind of coffee shops anywhere in the world. Like Glitch and all of them are pretty much the same as what I can find in America. So when I go somewhere else in the world, I don't really necessarily concern myself with going to see what specialty coffee shops they have there, because, okay, I want to see what's kind of indigenous. I want to see what's unique, what's different. That's why when you look at like some of the videos we've released from Malaysia, there's really, the Malaysian series has absolutely no modern specialty coffee shops that we went to. I didn't have the time to go to any of them. I told my friends, I was like, I want to see the kopitiams. I want to see the hardcore old school places. I don't care about the new stuff. I'm up to here in the new school, right? So that's one thing I think when you go to places, go there with, try to come with the openness to experience what they have to offer, rather than, what particularly you might like, because and that's why when we do the Road Rules episodes and we go to these different coffee shops, I try not to, like, they'll say, what, I'll ask them, hey, what coffee should I have? And they're like, well, what coffees do you like? And I'm like, well, it doesn't, what I like is immaterial, right? Like, if I wanted to drink what I like, I would make it at home, because I've got enough tools to do it at home. I want to experience something new, something different. Maybe I can experience something that will change my mind, that will open my horizons more. That's really what I personally am concerned about when I go to places like, so I always ask the barista, what do you like? And I always ask them, what do you like? Because I don't care what the rest of the world likes. I care about what you like. You, the barista that's in the field, that's working here, that ostensibly knows your coffee menu best or better than anyone else. What do you like? What's really good? I'll try that, and I'll try. Like, you see me order, I'll try anything they say. Even like you guys are like, the one time we couldn't go to Boxcar, go to Starbucks. All right, I'll go to Starbucks. I'll try it. We'll try it. Maybe we'll find something worthwhile. Did I skip? Did the sound die out again? No. Oh no, that was better before. I mean, and no one dare tells them. I mean, that could be. I mean, there's certainly, there is a rigid hierarchy in old school society there. So like, they're not going to. But I think the people that go to them, like especially the ones that are like the dark roasted, the bitter coffees, there's still a whole world of people that love that stuff. I mean, not as much as before, because that's why they've been closing so many of them over the years. Masters are dying, the business are going, people are dying off, and the tastes are changing. And so certainly that could be that people, may say that they'd be afraid, especially within Japanese society, to tell the masters. I can't really speak to that because I'm not really that well knowledgeable about their hierarchical society. Anton says, I have no problem with what you're talking about. What I meant is that some videos I've seen where some elderly man brews super dark coffee that's like 100 years past roast and brews. I mean, don't get me wrong. I have been to some of those kind of places. Like there have been quite a number of Kisatens that I've been to that I just thought was dark, bitter, and not very great. And there's a lot of that, right? But I think in some of in those places, like, they're really like this one place that I went to. And a lot of the Kisatens don't necessarily roast their own. They're buying from like Key Coffee. They're buying from Caravan Coffee, which are all Japanese roasters. Like Caravan's very popular and with a lot of places that I went to. And they have these, basic, simply they have these standardized rows. And they cater to a world of people that really like that kind of thing. They want that dark bitterness. And it's one of those things where it's just like the Folgers crowd here in America. Like there's a segment of people that really enjoy that dark, bitter roast. Or that's all they know. That's what they know. That's what's comfortable. That's what's easy for them. So they stay with that. And so I can find an appreciation for that. But I want to see, like, for me, it's also like, what is the cafe experience like, right? Like, does the experience of visiting this cafe, offer something more? Like, there's a place in Shimokitazawa, right? And you might have heard of Shimokitazawa because that's where Bear Pond Espresso is. That hardcore guy who spent time in New York and brought espresso back, and he makes like this like supposedly super great espresso that he only has so much, and if you don't get there, you have to get there a certain time. If you don't get it, it's all gone. You go home and get out. Honestly, Shimokitazawa is not really easy to get to from where I normally stay. And in order to get there, to get his espresso, I got to get up. I'm not going all the way. I don't care. I don't care enough to do that. Like I was like, it's too much work. I'll go to Lombre and have a wonderful time. I don't need to go get, third wave espresso. But, a lot of people do. A lot of people love it. But there's another place that's open until way late at night. So that's when I went. A place called Café Trois Chambres, the Cafe of Three Chambers. And it's got like tiki stuff in it. It's all kind of weird and crazy. Now, if we were to say, like, if we go there and you look at the quality of the coffee comparatively, it's not great. It's coffee, right? But it's always more. To me, it's also more than just the coffee. Sometimes it's like the coffee. For me, at least in these places, like, what's the experience like? And the experience is interesting. It's worth going to. Would I be a regular there? No. Right? I enjoy Lombre, so I always make the effort to go and hang out there as much as I pretty much there every day if I can. If I can do it, I'm there every day. Another place I love to go to is Mocha Coffee. I like to go there. I don't get to go there because she's also like in Daikanyama, which is kind of like a Shimokitazawa. That's kind of a little bit farther out. So you're like, it's harder to get there. It's a little bit more harder to get there. So I don't know. Bruce, do some dirty sock. I think the sock thing is perfectly fine. A lot of them clean their socks. Don't worry. It's not like it just came off their feet. Anton says it looks like a black sludge. Everyone's like, whoa, and I think to myself, is this some really is black sludge. I can think of this one place I went to. I won't say the place. But I think the guy was a devotee of Master Sekiguchi, because when I went there, it was like, there's a lot of cues here that look like Lombre from different design elements. I was like, because I'm very familiar with Lombre now, so I was like, whenever I go someplace where they were very influenced by Sekiguchi, you can kind of see it. But this guy, man, he roasted his own, super dark, like bitter. Like I was like, oh my gosh, man, this is some hardcore coffee. And he was like youngish, like maybe younger than me, I think. But he was very much he was very curt. He was like, he was all gruff and angry. I was like, what are we doing here? So I had the coffee and left. Charles is here. What's going on, Charles? Grind old coffee and put in garden. Great for tomato plants. Oh, perfect. That's a great idea. Asian Dev says, do you like Vietnamese cafe soda? It's a good, yes. I would say yes overall. We used to serve that at Spro. So we would make it we would actually do a darker roast for that coffee. Actually, probably a roast that you guys would find like horrific. But we would do definitely a darker roast for that, and then use the traditional cafe fin, and it just takes a long time. It's a guilty pleasure. Yeah, it's a guilty pleasure. It is a guilty pleasure. Like I tried the cafe wing because I got some, and I was like, I should try that to see what it's like, and I didn't like it. Like it's too art that they put it. If you're not familiar with the cafe wing, I think it's wing. It's I want to say Nguyen, right? Because it's Nguyen, but evidently it's wing. I don't really know Vietnamese pronunciation very well, so you'll have to forgive me if I'm off. But they put chocolate flavoring, and it tastes synthetic to me. It tastes artificial. Like I don't know. Like I remember I bought a box and I tasted it a few times. I was like, not really for me. I might still have some of that box here. And those are one of the coffees that, probably 40 years later, it's still fine. It's still the same. Asian says that the condensed milk is amazing. I like it too with the when we make it with the sweetened condensed milk that has the Vietnamese right in it. It's the white can with the old Chinese guy with the beard. I can totally see the label. I just can't remember what the brand is. Gold something, but you know what I'm talking about. The old Asian dude. I think that's a great sweetened condensed milk, especially for a cafe soda. Peter says, I like bitter coffee, like dark chocolate. Does that mean you like it, or or you don't like it? Because I like dark chocolate. I don't know if I necessarily like bitter coffee. Anton says, I have no problem with dark roast, but 50 years old with all these rancid oils. Nah. You got to try it. You have to give it. You always have to be open to it. You always have to be open. Because you never know when you're going to be surprised. But then again, those 50-year-old coffees, they've been gone for like 10 years. All right, now, we've been talking about making coffee. We haven't done any coffee making except for this. So let's do the Americano. Let me knock that out. This is a coffee show where we don't make any coffee. It's been sitting there, so there's a little bit of like dried oils or whatever, or dried whatever. So I want to rinse that off. Good. Now, like I said, for the Americano, we want to float the espresso on top. Hopefully, we pulled that last shot. Had really nice cream. Now that I'm actually going to go for the actual drink, it's probably going to break. One of the things since we're using this 12-ounce cup is that we want to pull the shot directly into it. Now, I could go under it, but what I like to do is I like to float the espresso on top, which means that we have to fill this with water first and then pull the shot. But with this spout, it won't fit. So luckily, this spout comes off. One of the reasons why we moved to this from the we used to use naked portafilters at Spro, so we moved to these when they came out because you could still get the benefit of the naked, meaning that you could fit the cup underneath the spout or underneath the portafilter, and then you could if you wanted to for other shots, you could go back to the spout. It's really simple. I really like this, and also maybe if you didn't do a great job distributing your coffee, it would also contain it, and you wouldn't be exposed as to be the charlatan that you are. Let's put that back in, and the water is boiling again. Let's get the coffee ready. So we've already ground it. Okay, now we've got the mounting again. Again, you can see there's a little bit of clumping, right? But we've got the lower here. It's all kind of filled back. So again, we're going to sweep around. But this time, I don't get a good control when I come around to past the 5 o'clock position. So I like to come back this way from the other side and pull it in towards me, so that way it covers all of that down there. That I'll rotate around so that I can come in this way now. Come back with it, bring it around again. So I'm always pushing towards the center, like that. Go a little bit of mess in. And then now back to the temper. Compress it a little bit. And then using the fingers again, we're using the fingers in opposition to check level. Come back, tap with a twist to polish, and then excess here, we're just going to flick it off and push it off. And then also, let's see, there's a little bit here on the rim of the basket. Just make sure that's all clean before you insert. And since it's been sitting for a little bit, we're going to flash it one time, make sure it's okay. A little bit of sizzling going on. I'm going to put the portafilter down because what I want to do is I want to get our water. Add boiling again. We're going to fill up our cup. Oh, this is really hot. Now, I like to fill probably to about there. And that's more or less 10 ounces. And then now we can go straight into it and brew. And the nice thing is if I get the starts going, I don't have to worry about fracking or twisting. And I just want to pull the shot right on top. And we're following the same thing we normally do. We just want to see, hopefully we're getting a good spread. Like sometimes it doesn't spread and you're just disappointed. But it looks like it's spreading well. We're just looking for a little bit of flutter. There's a little bit of flutter. And now we can pull it out. Oh, Now we have crema all the way around. There's a little bit of drip on the side. We want to wipe that off. Okay, so full crema over here. Let's bring it back over here to this camera. So as you can see, this is how we want to serve it. So if I was serving it to you at the cafe, this would be it right here. Et voila. And we want to make sure that the important thing for me is that we want to have this crema here, because this communicates that, you know, for those in the know, that we want to have this attention to detail and care for you to have the full experience of the espresso. And by pouring it directly into this vessel, we're giving you all the flavor that the espresso has to offer. Now you can see, comparatively to this first cup, where we have very strong and very even brown, this one is a little more swirly. That's because it's spreading out over a greater distance, probably about 40% more surface area in this cup than in this cup. So the same amount of crema, same amount of espresso, but just greater area that it has to cover. But to me, this is the ideal looking Americano. Like, this is what I'll be very happy to serve this in a cafe environment, or even at home to friends or guests that may be staying with us, right? Anton says, and then they're doing those fancy movements. Well, oh, you the whole, yeah. Then you probably shouldn't go to Chate Hato, because you'd be like, why is this guy taking 15 minutes to make my coffee, and why is he always doing these like movements? Charles says, not sure if this is posting, but if you have old coffee you don't want to drink, put it in your tomato plant. Oh, that's what you meant before. Okay, gotcha. Then Anton says, like the engraving, serve no tactical advantage. Oh, it's like the engraving, serve no tactical advantage whatsoever. Gotcha. Then Peter says, some people like fresh meat, some people like beef jerky, each to his own. Speaking of which, I just had beef jerky last night. Excellent for dinner. A friend of mine made it. Really delicious. Oops, now I probably swung by it. My computer is very slow. Like, now suddenly I cannot scroll. I can't scroll. I can't scroll through the comments. Okay, there we go. Speaking of which, my old meat in the freezer makes the best smoked jerky. Oh, nice. Yeah, my friend smoked it, salt, pepper, just really simple, really just lovely. It turned out really well. I was really surprised. Naomi says, I had a Puerto Rican friend who made her coffee on the stovetop in a pot with a sock-looking thing with a handle. Oh yeah, very, very common in Latin America, that style of coffee making. Using pre-ground coffee from a can, it was great. Surprise. Yeah, you know, I think coffee's contextual. Like, we talk about, like, you know, people go to Italy and they say, oh, I had the best espresso in Italy. It's the most amazing espresso. I mean, then you have the coffee enthusiast. It's like, well, you know, the espresso, the Lavazza is not that great. I mean, it's good, but it's not great. But, you know, what made it great? Because of the context. You're in Italy, you're on vacation, you're loving your life, and everything's much more beautiful. Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. You know, so, and I think that, you know, if you're hanging out with friends, you're enjoying your conversation and your company, and you have a nice environment, maybe the coffee's not the best in the world, but man, it's enjoyable because you're enjoying the whole context of everything. I think that's a big part of it. Which is why sometimes I think people that are drinking on their own, especially, you know, if you're a coffee nerd, you're drinking on your own, you're like, and all you're doing is all by yourself. You're just critically analyzing the coffee based on what you like. You're like, this is no good. This is rubbish. It's too dark. It doesn't have enough crema. It doesn't have this. Is that really the best way to drink? Just enjoy it. Try to enjoy yourself for it. Try to enjoy for what it is. And Adrian says that it is pronounced win. Okay, good. It took me a long time to really get that correctly. Oh, longevity brand. Thank you. That's exactly the brand. I love that brand. Naomi says, my motto is that if it sounds disgusting, he must try. She just can't get over the whole natto and espresso thing. That's what. I don't think I got over that either. It's all right. Don't worry. Ketchup. Oh, yeah, then we did the ketchup latte. Did we do ketchup latte, or we haven't done that yet? I can't remember anymore. If we did it, it probably blocked it out. That's why. All right, let's try it. Oh, wait, we did it. Okay, I do kind of remember that. That's a low point. That's the low point of the show. Yeah. So the problem is that, gosh, that's nice. The problem is that because we're using hot water, like boiling water, it's super hot. So you have to be careful with it. But that, I didn't get a lot of flavor, but there's a little bit of like berry character, fruitiness that seemed to came through right there, right, that little taste that I had. Oh yeah, good body. The chocolateness that we see here, a little more diminished. It's a little more diluted, right? But it's got beautiful like berry notes to it. And then one of the things I wanted to share with you today was the pretzel, because that's kind of what's on the thumbnail. So like I said, this is the Rocky Road Bakery. Now this is a pretzel that I think is fabulous, and Anton will probably disagree because, you know, he's German, so they know pretzels, and it's probably like, so how does the pretzels come to America? Pretzels came to America in like the 1800s. There's a place in Lititz, Pennsylvania called Julius Sturgis, and he came and built what was evidently the very first pretzel factory in Lititz, Pennsylvania. We went there also yesterday. We'll probably do some tasting of his another day. But this particular place, Rocky Road, is owned by the Amish family, I believe, and there's something about this that it just connects with me so well. There's a lightness, there's a little bit of butteriness to it. It's got good crunch, but light crunch and light structure. Like you have some of the, if you're here in America, you probably have the sourdough, the hard pretzels, like by Snyder's or Utz and all those companies. They're very hard. This is crunchy, but not hard. Like there's a loftiness to it that is, I think, texturally just beautiful, just beautiful. So I wanted to try it with the Americano today. Anton says, I might have played a part in the formation of the idea. A part? That's how you call it, a part? No, you're probably the full force behind it, I would say. Was it drinkable? Yeah, it was totally drinkable. Yeah. Not great, not terrible. Yeah, I mean, it was, if you liked, I think, if I had to go back and look at it, but I think that I said that it gave me an idea to try something else that was tomatoey. Naomi says he did natto, and that could not have been good. Peter says try vanilla ice cream with ketchup. Ooh. And how about mustard? Oh, how about mustard? Naomi says I really enjoy the 99. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you enjoy it for my latte. But recently I've been using the house blend for my lattes. Oh, it's different. And they're going to be a little bit different because there's actually a natural process component to the 99 that we don't put anywhere near the house coffee. Because there's quite a lot of people that don't like in brewed coffee, they don't want to have that weird, to a lot of people, that fruitiness, the berryness would be too weird. So we're really, the idea behind, not this one, but the idea behind the House Nation is that we're really trying to be a coffee for a wider spectrum of people, right? People that are normally drinking, that come from the regular world of coffee, as opposed to the specialty world of coffee. All right, so here's our pretzel. Light and airy on the inside. It's not very dense. Like you see other ones, they're very dense. And it's kind of buttery. It's kind of like when I look at here at the bottom, here the crust here. Those of you who are in the United States, you may be familiar with a pretzel company that you find at like food courts and malls and the airports called Auntie Anne's. Someone mentioned me this yesterday. One of my friends, they were like, is it like Auntie Anne's? There's similarities to Auntie Anne's in the way that they color it and the way they bake it and some of the butteriness to the character. But they bake this for a lot longer, so it dries out. Man, I can't get enough of it. But the butteriness, very light, little bit sweetness. Maybe there's a little bit of honey in the dough. Yeah, that's nice. All right, I can deal with that. Anton asks, have you ever tried an allongé? One of Raoul's inventions you would probably like. Oh, no, I'm not even familiar with that. Allongé. Do you recall what it is? Maybe we can give it a try. How about serving guacamole, but secretly replacing it with wasabi? That's just cruel. That's cruel. Especially when you get the real wasabi. Man, super. I like the cleanliness of the real wasabi. Anton says, I remember you trying the cup of action from Indonesia 2023 with a friend, and he said it tasted like beef jerky in a good way. Oh, awesome. Honestly, I don't recall. But awesome. I'll have to go look for that video. Do you recall if that was a edited video, like a release video, or one of the live streams? Charles says Baltimore internet is poor this morning. Oh, yeah, Xfinity is terrible. Can you believe? So, those of you who may not be from the United States, Americans pride ourselves on being the greatest country on the planet. Yeah, we're better. We're better than everybody else. No matter where you are, no matter how great you think you are, America's better. And let me tell you why. Because here in the United States, I can buy internet access with 30 megabytes per second download and 5 megabits a second, maybe 6 megabits a second upload. You know how much we got? We pay $150 a month for that service. Yeah, beat that. That's how great America is. When I travel, and I talk to my friends about what they pay for internet and their internet speeds, I'm just like, oh God. It's like, I remember some people like $20 for like 200 up or 150 up, 50 down. I was like, oh no, so I'm like 50 up, 150 down. I was like, pay how much a month? Yeah, our internet really sucks. That's good. That's good pretzel. Nemi says, Malcolm, no, I tried to pick up a favorite. Okay, gotcha. Anton says, I think I would use room temp water or cold. Well, I mean, I know I like the hot. We want to have the hot. Now, you can use room temperature and cold, and we will use cold. Let's say we will make like iced Americanos for people. Though in the case of the iced Americano, what we would normally do is we would take we got one of these here. Let's say we would use this be a to-go cup. Typically, the iced Americanos were to-go. We would have some that were for here, but we put them in 16-ounce pint glasses because we use 16-ounce to-go plastic, right? Because we go to a larger cup than the 12-ounce serving because we have the ice to account for. So we would typically go with water to here, cold water, pull the shot to about there, and then balance that with ice to get that difference. That's the time we would actually use cool water. Anton says the pretzel looks good, but in Germany they look like they look a bit slimmer usually. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, the ones that I get at the airport, the Lufthansa Senators Lounge, they're a little bit thinner than this one. I think they're a little bit thinner than these are, right, thin-wise. But man, they're so good. Like the one with the cheese, the Kess on top of it. Oh man, like I'm like stealing as much. Like I'll try to leave it with at least 2 for my next flight. I'm like, I must hoard these pretzels. And I don't know who Lufthansa gets it from, but they're really, to me, they're like the best I've ever had. Like the best I've had in Germany. Like there's another place called Heberer. Like if you're at Frankfurt Airport and the A terminal, there's a bakery there, Heberer. I don't know if they're a chain or not, but they have pretzels. And I've had to buy it from there a couple times. They're good, but the ones that they serve at the lounge, gosh, the texture is so much better. Oh, crunchy, very crunchy, Nomi. I only use the reference to the anti-ant not as a true description, but just more about, like, anti-ant the color, it's not that really, really dark brown that you see from like Hanover and the other companies, it's that kind of like light color that you see from Auntie Anne's. Like even the bottom here has that kind of Auntie Anne's style crust, but it is very crunchy all the way through. Like this is what they consider hard pretzel, made by hand. So over here, the ingredients are unbleached wheat flour, water, butter, raw sugar, yeast, and seeds. Oh no honey. Okay, so there's evidently a little bit of milk. It says here contains wheat and milk. Oh, because of the butter. But I mean, I think super simple ingredients and just beautiful. I don't know what they do. Like the texture, it's really the flavor and the texture and the crunchiness and the airiness, the lightness of it. Like, you know, you're eating some pretzels from like the dark ones, and you really gotta crunch it down. It's none of that. It's just crunchy but light. Anton says, and in Germany they are soft, not crunchy. Yeah. I don't think you guys like crunchy for pretzels. And I've never seen anything like these we have in America there. Anton says, not sure if a allongé is possible on 9-bar machine. I will have to look at it. Okay, I'll try to look at it as well. It's a way to brew light roast espresso with like a 1-to-5 ratio, but there's more to it. Okay, basically it's a 1-to-5 light roast espresso, but you need to maintain 9 bars, but with a high flow rate, so about 30-second shot time. Okay. Never mind. More like maintain 6 bar and 2 milliliters a second. Okay. So in these cases where Rayo is doing this, and I don't know if it's Rayo or Rao, I tend to say Rao. What kind of machine is he using to maintain this lower bar pressure and flow rate? You know, I like these pretzels so much I can just sit here and eat them nonstop. But we know how to really like the coffee's nice. This Americano with the pretzel is very nice. But when I'm alone and nobody's watching me, I like the pretzel with Diet Coke. It's true. I'm only drinking this because it's gratuitous. The coffee is gratuitous for the show. I would normally be drinking this with Diet Coke. The decent. So it's possible the E61, but not as easy. Yeah, we'd have to change the brew pressure. Is that right? And actually on this one, I'd have to look into it. I mean, this particular machine, the La Valentina, you can hear it. It uses a vibratory pump. Right, that's why it has that. It's a vibratory pump. Now I'm going to get rid of this. So it's not here tomorrow. And, you know, I've never really messed around with this machine very much, so I don't know how to change that. I'm going to have to look into it and see. No, you would have to change the pressure. Just hit the right grind size. Oh, okay. Sounds good. All right. Gosh, it's already a minute, hour 45. Means I've been babbling too long. All right, so back in tomorrow with more coffee Q&A. Thank you very much for tuning in. Always good to see you guys. Always good to hang. Craig says that the allongé is a Canadian thing, which Raul learned when he was at Myriad in Montreal. Oh, I love that guy. Nick Fortin is a awesome dude. I've known Nick for many, many years now. Is that right? Or is that Fortin's place? Or is Myriad owned by I can't remember his name. Sevan. Istanbulian. Anyway, Kent, Asian Dev, Mom, Anton, Peter, Craig, everybody, thank you very much. Charles, great to see all you guys. Baku, Mom, good to see you guys. Have a wonderful day out there. Be back again tomorrow. And until then.